My name is Priya, I'm 33, and I teach history and English at a secondary school in Sydney. I know this might sound odd, but I'm not here to talk about something that happened to me. I'm here to talk about something that didn't, and how that fact alone might have saved my life. In 2009, I lost my husband in a car accident. He was walking home from a friend's birthday drinks when a group of teenagers, drunk, high, and joyriding in a stolen car, lost control on a bend and plowed into a low concrete wall. My husband was on the other side of it, just passing by. They said he died on impact, that the collision broke his spine and tore through his chest. And as horrific as that is, it was my one sliver of comfort, knowing he didn't suffer. What followed was years of darkness. Grief doesn't just pass. It lingers, reshaping everything. I didn't look at another man for almost 6 years. Then, in 2015, I cautiously decided to try dating again. I wasn't into bars or clubs, and speed dating gave me anxiety. So, I turned to online dating, specifically a website called RSVP, which is fairly popular here in Australia. That's where I met Nathan. Nathan said he ran his own legal consultancy in the city. He was from Newcastle originally, but had moved to Sydney a few years earlier. He was witty, articulate, and had this slightly eccentric way of speaking that made me smile. He wasn't the most conventionally handsome guy, but there was something about him. He stood out from the rest. After chatting for a couple of weeks, he suggested we meet in person. He wanted to take me to a place called Dunmore House, a historic estate just outside the city. I looked it up, this beautiful colonial building surrounded by rolling hills and gardens. The kind of place you'd take someone to impress them. I was flattered, and I was tempted. But in the end, I told him I wasn't ready. It had been 6 years, yes, but emotionally, I still wasn't there yet. He didn't push, just said he understood. A few days later, he stopped replying altogether. I was disappointed, but I figured he'd moved on to someone a bit more spontaneous. And honestly, I thought that was the end of it. Then, on Christmas Day 2015, I heard something on the news that made my stomach turn. A woman's body had been found on the grounds of Dunmore House. The same estate Nathan had suggested for our date. Police were treating it as a suspicious death. The name wasn't released immediately. I felt a chill run through me, but I told myself it was just a coincidence. A horrible, tragic coincidence. A few days later, I saw a headline on my phone. Man charged with murder over Christmas Eve death. When I tapped the link, I felt my heart stop. The accused was named Nathan Langdon. Same first name, same last name, same age. And the location sealed it. This was the man I had been talking to. I sat there in silence, just staring at the screen. I couldn't feel my fingers, like my body was trying to dissociate from the weight of what I was reading. I wasn't just rattled. I was haunted. That could have been me. That should have been me. If I hadn't held back, if I hadn't said no, what would have happened? The woman he killed was named Jessica Tan. She was also a teacher, like me, and she'd agreed to meet him at Dunmore House on Christmas Eve. When the case went to trial, more details came out, details so disturbing that I still feel sick thinking about them. Nathan had claimed he ran a legal firm, but that was a complete fabrication. In reality, he was unemployed and had a documented history of violent behavior. He had once assaulted his ex-girlfriend's sister, threatened a mental health worker, and been detained under Australia's Mental Health Act. While in psychiatric care, he admitted to having dark, violent fantasies. He told a psychologist that he often imagined being intimate with women after killing them. Somehow, horrifyingly, he convinced the system he was stable enough to be released in mid-2015. And just a few weeks after his release, he signed up for RSVP, using a fake name and fake career history. That's when he messaged me. At his trial, prosecutors revealed that he had methodically planned Jessica's murder. He had chosen a remote location, isolated from the city, and brought with him items that indicated premeditation. He initially tried to claim her death was an accident, a consensual act that went wrong. But forensic evidence told a different story. Eventually, he pled guilty. He was sentenced to 26 years in prison without parole. A year later, in early 2023, I read that Nathan had taken his own life in prison. And when I saw that headline, I didn't feel sad. I didn't even feel conflicted. I felt relief. I think about Jessica often. I think about how similar we were. Teachers. Quiet. Cautious. I think about how she agreed to that date, and I didn't, and how that simple decision became the line between life and death. It feels strange, even selfish, to say this is my story. But it is, because I'm the one who's left behind to carry it. I didn't suffer what Jessica did, but I suffer because I could have. That kind of near miss does something to you. It changes the way you view chance, the way you view people. That's why I'm sharing this. If just one person hears it and decides to trust their instincts, to say not yet or no when they feel unsure, then maybe it's worth the vulnerability of putting this out into the world. Because sometimes, not showing up is what saves your life. I've always been wary of meeting strangers, so steering clear of dating apps was an easy decision at first. I didn't want to date anyone online because I didn't like meeting with strangers. It wasn't because of a past experience, but because of what I hear on the news. People trick others into meeting them through dating apps, and then they empty their bank accounts, or the victim gets reported missing. No thanks, I'd say, shaking my head as they became the go-to way to meet people. Not for me. I wasn't about to end up as a true crime headline. I was feeling lonely and wasn't a social person who could talk to strangers and become friends with them. I felt a lack of confidence in front of girls that I find attractive. Once, I ended up asking a girl about her favorite color. She just laughed at me and told her friends. But as months passed, I watched my friends go on date after a date. Some even found long-term relationships this way. And to be fair, most of the guys they met seemed normal. Sure, there were a few weirdos with their unsolicited messages, but nothing truly terrifying. Still, I held my ground, avoiding dating apps like the plague. Until I got super lonely. Everything around me started feeling quiet, and I was getting into a depressing state. I really need to find someone with whom I can spend time, laugh, and maybe I'll be lucky enough to find a life partner. I might get lucky. Yeah, I know. Hypocritical. But after graduating and settling into my career, meeting people became hard. Gone were the days of bumping into someone at a party every weekend, which was also rare because my social battery used to charge rarely. Work drained me, and the idea of forcing myself to go out just to meet new people. Exhausting. I started to think I'd be alone forever. I was accepting my life. I wished that I was like my friends who had a balance of work and enjoyment, but all I had was work and depression. So reluctantly I gave in. Downloaded one app, then another, then a few more. Swiping became second nature, an oddly addictive way to pass the time. But even as I scrolled through an endless sea of faces, I rarely reached out. Talking to strangers still made me uneasy, and let's be real. I've listened to way too many true crime podcasts. The constant warnings to never let your guard down weren't easy to ignore. Looking back now, that paranoia might have saved my life. I wasn't reckless. I refused to meet anyone until I felt like I knew them. So when someone familiar popped up on my screen, I was intrigued. I actually knew this guy. Went to high school with him. If I was ever going to give this a shot, meeting someone I already had a history with seemed like the safest option. I swiped right, then set my phone down to brush my teeth. Seconds later, my screen lit up. We matched. My first reaction? Shock. We weren't exactly friends back then. I doubted he even knew I existed. He was part of that elite, ultra-rich crowd at my private high school, a place I only managed to attend thanks to a partial scholarship and my parents' relentless hard work. Alan, as we'll call him, wasn't the worst of the rich kids, but he fit the stereotype: effortless grades, expensive cars, and a new girlfriend every month. He got away with anything and everything. When his message came through, I almost ignored it. But then I thought, maybe I was being unfair. High school was years ago. People change. And okay, I'd be lying if I said I hadn't secretly crushed on him back then. I answered. We messaged for hours, laughing and reminiscing. He was funny, charming, and by the time I finally forced myself to sleep, it was nearly 3 a.m. Before we'd signed off, he asked if I wanted to meet up the next evening. No pressure, of course. Only if you're comfortable. Was I comfortable? Not really. But I still typed back, sure. Smiley face. The next day, I distracted myself with random chores until the afternoon. Then I went all in: long bath, face mask, makeup, the works. I hadn't been on a date in ages, but the routine felt familiar. Dressed in a black mini dress and heels, I stepped out the door, heart racing with anticipation. We met at a small gastropub, catching up over dinner and drinks. He'd gone to college, then started working at his family's company. He seemed more mature now, but like me, he admitted he'd been feeling lonely. When the check came, he paid despite my attempt to split it. And then at the end of the night, he asked, "Want to come back to my place?" No pressure. Only if you're comfortable. Normally, I'd say no. Not because of some outdated rule about what's proper, but because trust takes time. But I knew him. At least I thought I did. We stopped at a liquor store, and Alan let me pick out a 6-pack of ciders. When the cab arrived, he held the door open for me, then rushed to do the same when we pulled up to his place. It was a nice house, no surprise there. Inside, he handed me an open cider, and we settled onto the couch, talking and sipping our drinks. An hour later, 6 empty bottles lined the coffee table, and we made our way to his bedroom. We had sex. It was good, not amazing, but let's be honest. Is it ever amazing the first time with someone new? Afterward, I started slipping on my heels, ready to head home, but he stopped me. "Stay the night," he said. "Let's just talk for a while." I wasn't expecting that, but it was nice. I agreed. That's when things got weird. He got up and came back with mixed drinks. I was thirsty, so I finished mine pretty quickly. Immediately, he jumped up to get me a refill. I hesitated. He wasn't even halfway through his first drink, but I told myself I was overthinking. It wasn't like he needed to get me drunk. We'd already slept together. Still, I drank the second, one more slowly. And when he left to use the bathroom, I tossed the rest out the window. Obligatory, not a Tinder story, but I feel like people want to read any kind of nightmare story in these uncertain times. Several years ago, I met a girl when I was working at the mall, and we texted for a while. It was going smoothly, so I invited her to a show my band was playing. She agreed to come and see us play, and we were texting pretty consistently right up to the point where she was getting in her car to come to the venue. Then nothing. Complete ghost and no response. I was annoyed, but what can you do? Roughly 6 months later, I get a call and a voicemail from an unknown number. I listen to the voicemail, and it's the girl. "Hey Jacques, it's Crystal. I don't know if you remember me, but I was on my way to see your show, and I stopped to get gas and dropped my phone in a storm drain and lost all my contacts. I finally had the idea to go back through my phone bill because I remembered you were from state I'm from and found your number. If you're still interested, I'd love to make it up to you." Now, you have to understand this was well before the cloud, so you could easily lose all of your contacts just by losing your phone, and I don't remember the exact details of her story, but I'm not sure if she had the transcriptions of the numbers she texted, or if it was from the first time I called her phone to make sure the number she gave me was correct. In any case, TI sounded legit, and I figured I'd at least get an apology so I agreed to meet up with her that weekend. I offer to meet her somewhere, but she insists on picking me up, saying that she owes me big time for meeting me, and that she's so sorry she did that to me. We go out for lunch at a sushi place and have a fine time. She's a little frenetic, but she's obviously nervous and very apologetic. When she insists on paying, I knew she had been thinking about this for months. Afterwards, we go to Starbucks for coffee. She insists on paying there too. She says she needs to stop at Nordstrom, and would I like to come? Sure, I say. Why not? She says she'll buy me anything I want. What? We get to Nordstrom, and she picks up her makeup, and we walk around. We have a little decent banter, but she's constantly offering to buy me things, and since I'm declining, it's getting a bit annoying. "This is a nice sweater. I'll get it for you." Or, "Haha, look at those shoes." "Why? Do you want them?" "I'll get them for you." It was a bit forced, so I suggest we skip out, and now she wants to take me out for dinner. It's been long enough that I'm okay with it, and she insists on paying there too. Since it's obvious to me she's made her apology, I make an honest effort to pay, and she almost rudely refuses by pushing my card away. At this point, I'm bored with her, and this whole paying for things scheme has run its course. I'm happy to just go home afterwards, so we finish up and she drives me home. On the way back, I'm wondering if I should just follow through. She's cute and obviously interested, and has certainly paid her dues, so to speak. Before I have a chance to decide, she's parked the car and says, "Do you mind if I come up and use your bathroom?" Very clever. The decision has been made for me. She comes up and goes straight to the bathroom. She's in there long enough that I can tell she's nervous. I clean up the place a bit, put on some music, light a candle, etc., and I stand at the end of the hall waiting for her. I have my sexy pose and look ready to go so that she'll see me, and that I mean business, right as she exits the bathroom. The door opens and she sees me and knows it's on. I can see the look change from uncertainty as her eyes meet mine. She walks right up to me, and I immediately get a huge, stinky whiff of poop air from my bathroom. She wasn't in there staring at herself in the mirror to muster up the courage to make the move, nor was she in there unable to resist touching herself at the very thought of our bodies unclothed and pressed against each other in mere moments. She was in there taking a ferociously giant shit, and now the air from around it was in my mouth and nose. I gagged and immediately backed away and told her that it was super nice of her to take me out and that I really appreciated it, and what a funny story, and can't wait to tell people, and I have to go to sleep right away, so bye-bye, see you later, drive safe. I had to kind of push her out the door before running back into the rest of my apartment to open all the windows and light a second, third, and fourth candle, reserved for really sexy nights. I don't remember if we texted much after that, but that smell was forever associated in my mind with her, and all possible sexiness was removed from the situation. I call it Pavlov's log. He introduced himself as Garrett, but said it like a confession. 2 R's, 2 T's. Blame my parents. It's a name that looks symmetrical on paper, which I suppose is the only place I've ever been symmetrical. I laughed. He smiled in that practiced, slow way that made you feel like he saw something in you other people missed. We met at a rooftop bar. He picked it, said it had the best view of the city and the worst cocktails, something about imbalance keeping you honest. He was older than me by maybe 7 years. Wore a charcoal blazer and a black shirt, open at the collar. No tie. His hair was swept back like he'd just come from somewhere expensive. Garrett spoke like a man who'd spent time with therapists but never fully bought in. He listened. Closely. You could feel it. But it was also clear he was measuring, assessing, filing away every answer like data. When I asked what he did, he said, I work in private acquisitions. People give me things they're not ready to sell. I asked if that was supposed to be poetic or literal. He said both. The first 45 minutes were magnetic. He told stories that held tension in the middle, like he'd learned how to pace them perfectly. He asked questions that felt invasive, but in a way that made you want to answer them. Then, in the middle of a second drink, he said it. I dated a married woman for 4 years. He said it like he was telling me he'd spent time abroad. I blinked. You mean like an affair? He nodded. Affair is such a judgmental word. I prefer parallel relationship. I waited for the punchline. There wasn't one. She was married, he said, but not available. That's different. I asked if her husband knew. He smirked. He suspected. But suspicion isn't proof. And proof doesn't always lead to action. I watched him closely. He sipped his drink. I'm not proud of it, he said. But I'm not ashamed either. She was the most honest relationship I've had. I didn't respond. He looked at me. You're judging. I'm processing. He leaned forward. Let me ask you something. If someone makes you feel more alive, more seen, more you, do you owe that experience to a calendar or a contract? I said, you owe it to the people involved. He smiled. That's the polite answer, not the true one. We left the rooftop and walked through the city. He told me about her. Her name was Ilsa, which sounded made up but probably wasn't. She was a photographer, had a husband who worked in finance and thought loyalty meant paying the mortgage on time. She used to say, Garrett recalled, that living with him was like sleeping next to a wall. No cruelty. Just nothing. I said, that's sad. He nodded. It is. But it's also real. I asked, did she love you? He looked at me with a kind of reverence. She loved the part of herself I gave her permission to be. That didn't answer the question. I asked what happened. She left, he said. Not him. Me. Why? Garrett smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. She said I made her forget she was real. I didn't understand. She meant it as a compliment, he said. But it scared her. He texted me the next day. Dinner tonight? I promise not to talk about married women. Unless you want me to. I didn't reply for 5 hours. Then I said yes. We met at a place with dark booths and menus printed on leather. He ordered for both of us without asking. When I raised an eyebrow, he said, trust is dinner's first ingredient. Over the meal, he asked me about my past, my fears, my earliest memory of rejection. He didn't flinch at any answer. Just nodded, like he'd heard it all before. At one point, I asked, do you ever worry you're just good at sounding sincere? He laughed. I've been accused of that. More than once. Is it true? He leaned in. Does it feel true? It did. And it didn't. By the third date, I was hooked but uneasy. He was brilliant, magnetic, precise. But there was something hollow in him, like a stage set with nothing behind the walls. We went back to his apartment. It was sleek, cold, everything in black, white, or chrome. There were no personal photos, no clutter. I asked, did you just move in? He shook his head. 3 years. Feels unlived in. He looked at me. That's intentional. He poured wine. Told me about another woman briefly. Not Ilsa. Someone else. A woman who had 3 children and a husband she claimed to love. Garrett said they only slept together once. She cried afterward, he said. Said it was the first time she felt like a person in years. I stared at him. You collect people who are taken. No, he said. I find people who are trapped. That's not the same thing? He smiled. It is for them. I asked if he ever pursued women who weren't already entangled. He shrugged. It's less interesting, less urgent. When someone's already claimed, they have stakes. They know the risk. That makes them honest. That makes them desperate. That too, he said. But desperation is more truthful than politeness. I left early that night. He didn't try to stop me. He just said, when you're ready to be seen, you'll call. I didn't. But I thought about it, more than I'd like to admit. Because Garrett had this way of making morality feel like a costume, something you could wear or remove depending on the scene. He didn't seduce with touch. He seduced with permission. He made you feel like your darkest thought was actually your most authentic self. And that's the most dangerous kind of intimacy. The kind that doesn't ask you to change, just to confess. A month later, I saw him at a bookstore. He was with a woman, young, wide-eyed, laughing too loudly. He saw me, didn't flinch, just nodded, like we shared a secret. Maybe we did, maybe we still do. But I walked away, because I don't want to be part of someone's collection. Especially not the kind they keep in glass cases, only to take out when the room gets quiet. I met Zephyr on the kind of Thursday that feels like it's holding its breath. Gray skies, no wind, the city paused between moods. She arrived 11 minutes late, wearing a dusky blue coat that made her eyes impossible to look away from. She moved like someone who had rehearsed every entrance, but made it look spontaneous. You're taller than I thought, she said, her voice low and deliberate. I like tall people. They don't flinch as easily. It wasn't flirtation, it was assessment. I laughed, unsure whether I'd passed or failed. Good to know. She smiled, just enough to keep me curious, and walked ahead, her boots clicking against the wet sidewalk. We turned into a bar she'd chosen, one of those velvet-lined dens where the lights are low and the wine list is mostly European. She ordered red, chilled slightly. Room temperature is a myth, she told the bartender. Most rooms are too warm and full of liars. I had no idea what that meant, but I nodded anyway. Zephyra had a presence that made you recalibrate your own volume. She didn't dominate the room. She bent it. The conversation drifted from books to botany to a childhood obsession with moths. She told me she once spent a summer cataloging the way light affected their wings. I like things that disappear when you try to hold them, she said, eyes on her glass. But still come back. At one point, she asked what I'd save in a fire if I could only take one thing that wasn't alive. When I said a box of letters from my grandfather, she tilted her head like she was weighing my soul. Sentiment, she said, useful in moderation. After drinks, we walked. She led us through back streets like she had somewhere specific in mind. As we reached an ivy-covered building on a quiet corner, she paused. I used to live here, she said, looking up at the 3rd floor. Well, I still have the key. I waited for the punchline. You mean, you forgot to return it? She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. No, I mean I still go in sometimes. You still have a key to your ex's apartment? She turned to me, her expression unreadable. It's not like that. He travels a lot. I feed the dog, water the plants. He's fine with it. I stared at her. She stared back. You think that's strange, she said, not with defensiveness but curiosity. I think it's blurred. She nodded slowly, like she appreciated the word choice. I prefer continuity. I don't believe in clean breaks. People don't just stop existing. She kissed me goodnight at the door. Soft, brief, like punctuation. Then she vanished into the building, her key catching the light as it turned in the lock. That night, I lay awake wondering about the thresholds we cross without permission, and the ones we pretend we haven't. The second time she came to my place, she brought a potted plant and a tin of saffron pastries. I don't like showing up empty-handed, she said, and I thought your windows looked lonely. We sat on the floor. She curled her legs under her like a cat and asked if I believed in past lives. I said I wasn't sure. She said, I think I used to be a storm. Halfway through a movie, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then set it face down. It's him, she said. The ex. She nodded. He gets anxious when I don't reply. You don't owe him anything. She looked at me. I owe him history. That doesn't vanish just because the rules changed. I didn't argue. I didn't want to push, but a warmth had left the room. Or maybe it was just me, realizing I wasn't alone in this space. Not really. She stayed that night, fell asleep on my chest like she'd done it before. I listened to her breathing and wondered what else she hadn't given back. A week later, she called me at midnight. "I'm locked out," she said. "Where are you?" "At his place. I came to feed Corvus, but he changed the lock." My blood ran cold. "Zephyra, why were you there?" "I've done it before," she said quickly. "It's not like I was snooping. I didn't think he'd change it." "Did he know you were coming?" Silence. Then, "Does it matter?" I didn't answer. "Can I come over?" I hesitated, long enough for her to notice. "You paused," she said. You think I'm crossing a line. I think you never left the last one." She was quiet. Then, almost pleading, "I just need a place to land tonight." I said yes, because I still wanted her to choose me, because some part of me believed she would. She arrived 20 minutes later, hair damp from the snow. She didn't speak, just took off her coat and curled onto my couch like a ghost that had finally found a body to haunt. She was gone before I woke up. She left a note on my fridge. "Thanks for the silence. It's rare. Z." Days passed. I didn't hear from her. Then a photo popped up on my feed. Zephyra in a park. Corvus beside her. She was smiling, real smile, full teeth. The caption read, "Some connections don't need labels. Or permission." There were 2 coffee cups on the bench behind her. I didn't comment. I didn't call. She messaged me 4 days later. "Made soup. Come over." I went. Because I wanted clarity. Because I'd stopped believing I'd get it. Her apartment was small and overgrown with trailing plants and open books. She handed me a bowl of soup and said, "Don't ask what's in it. Just trust me. Do you still have the key?" I asked without warning. She didn't flinch. "Yes." "Why?" She leaned back. "Because the door still opens." That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. I put the bowl down. "Zephyra, I like you. A lot. But I don't want to be the person you text at midnight when the other door doesn't open." She looked at me with something like pity. "You think love is a room with one key. I think it's a house with many doors. Then I'm not your house." She stood, walked to her desk, and opened a drawer. Pulled out the key. Silver. Small. Unremarkable. "I've thought about throwing it away," she said. "But it's not the metal that matters. It's the idea." "Then let go of the idea." She smiled sadly. "I don't know how." She didn't throw the key away. She just placed it back in the drawer like a bookmark in a story she wasn't done rereading. I left without kissing her. She didn't stop me. I never saw the key again. I met him on a Sunday morning. His name was Milo. He was the kind of person who made eye contact like it was a habit, not an effort. His profile was clean, no shirtless photos, no cryptic quotes. Just a casual picture of him in a navy jacket, standing in front of a row of trees, smiling like he knew something you didn't. We chatted briefly. He asked if I liked walking. Not hiking, not jogging, walking. I said yes. He said he knew just the place. We met that afternoon at Walcott Park, a sprawling garden tucked behind a defunct train station. Overgrown paths, a faded carousel, a stone fountain at the center. It was the kind of place where everything felt like it had once been important and had since been forgotten. He brought coffee. Black for him, oat milk for me. We started walking. He was easy to talk to. Not in a performative way. He never overshared, never tried to impress. He just had a calmness that made you want to fill the silence. I told him about my job, how I hated working from home because it made the days blur. He told me he did consulting work, mostly system stuff, he said vaguely. The conversation drifted. We talked about memory and music and the way certain smells could pull you backward in time. I liked the way his mind worked. He asked good questions. He never interrupted. We looped around the park twice. The sun dipped lower. The air grew cooler. Then we passed the fountain. I'd seen it earlier, dry, cracked, with vines curling around its base. But now someone was sitting on the edge. A woman. She wore a pale blue dress, the kind that looked like it belonged to another era. Her hair was long and dark, and she sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap. She didn't look up as we passed. Milo slowed his step. "Do you know her?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "We went out once." I waited for more. "She's persistent," he added, voice low. I looked back. The woman hadn't moved. Her head was tilted slightly downward, like she was listening to something we couldn't hear. "Should we go another way?" I asked. He shook his head. "It's fine. She won't follow." That struck me as an odd thing to say. We kept walking. He picked up the conversation like nothing had happened. I tried to focus, but the image of her stayed with me. How still she was, how pale her hands looked in the shadow of the fountain. When we reached the park's exit, I glanced back. She was gone. He walked me to my car, said he'd had a great time, asked if I wanted to meet again. I said yes and meant it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about her. Something about the way she sat, like she'd been waiting. Not just for him, for me. The next morning, I received a message. Not from Milo, from an unknown number. "He brings everyone here. Don't let him kiss you." My chest tightened. I replied, "Who is this?" No response. I blocked the number. Later that afternoon, Milo texted. "Still thinking about yesterday. You have a quiet way about you." It was nice. I didn't mention the message. We made plans to meet again. Another walk, another park, this time Hillside Grove. It was smaller, tighter paths, more trees. We met near a bench tucked under a willow. He brought tea this time. I wore a scarf, even though it wasn't cold. He was just as kind, just as calm. But something had shifted in me. I was waiting for something to go wrong. Halfway through the walk, I asked casually, "That woman from last time, what was her name?" He looked at me like I'd asked what color the sky was. "I don't remember," he said. I stopped walking. "You said you went out with her." "I did. But you don't remember her name?" He smiled faintly. "Some things don't need names." I didn't know what to say. We finished the walk. He didn't try to kiss me. I was grateful for that. That night, another message. He forgets them on purpose. He saves pieces. I didn't respond. I looked through his profile again, but it was gone. Deleted. Like he'd never been there. I texted him. "Hey, everything okay?" He replied seconds later. "Better now." We met a third time. Back at Walcott Park. I didn't want to go, but I needed to see. We walked in silence this time. He didn't ask questions. Just matched my pace like it had all been rehearsed. When we reached the fountain, she was there again. Same dress. Same posture. But this time, she looked up. Her eyes met mine. And she smiled. It wasn't warm. It was knowing. I stopped walking. Milo kept going a few steps before realizing. "You see her?" I asked. He turned. Looked at the fountain. Looked back at me. "There's no one there," he said. I stared at him. He wasn't lying. He truly didn't see her. I turned back, she was gone. I left the park without saying goodbye. He texted that night. "You left so suddenly. Did I do something wrong?" I didn't reply. I blocked the number. Weeks passed. Then one evening, I was walking home from the train station. A figure stood at the edge of the path. The woman. Same dress. Same stillness. She raised a hand, slowly, and pointed behind me. I turned. Milo. Standing half a block away, watching. I ran. When I got home, there was a message waiting on my voicemail. His voice. "I never said I was the only one who forgets. You will too, eventually. That's how you survive it." I deleted it, but I still see her sometimes. Always at a distance. Always near water. And once, in a mirror, she smiled again. And this time I smiled back. His name was Trevor, but he introduced himself as T. He said it like a nickname he'd grown into rather than out of. His messages were polite, a little dry but consistent. He didn't say much, but what he said came with weight, like he edited himself before hitting send. We met at a rooftop bar on a Wednesday evening. The kind of place where the drinks were named after poets, and the city looked like a backdrop instead of a place people lived. He was already there when I arrived, seated near the edge, staring into the skyline like it owed him something. "Lena?" he asked, standing. I nodded. He smiled, small and controlled. "You're exactly on time." I wasn't sure if it was praise or observation. He wore a black shirt with the sleeves rolled to the elbows, and he smelled faintly of something expensive and herbal. We sat. The conversation was fine. Not electric, not dull. He asked about my job, my family, my favorite kinds of silence. I told him I liked when the world quiets right before a storm. He said he liked the hum of streetlights at night. He didn't laugh much. But when he did, it came out quickly like it slipped past his guard. He paid for the drinks. Walked me to my car. At the door, he said, "I'd like to see you again." I said I'd think about it. He tilted his head. "You're cautious." I try to be. "Good. I watched him walk away, his posture straight, his hands in his pockets. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. The next morning, I got a text from an unknown number. "You look beautiful against the skyline. That color suits your skin." I stared at the screen. Then another message, seconds later. "You laughed less than you wanted to." Why? I didn't respond. I checked the number. No name. No shared history. Not the one Trevor had used. I messaged him anyway. "Did you text me from a different number?" He replied almost immediately. "No." "Why?" "Just got something weird. Probably spam." "Block it. People are strange." That night, another message. "You used to draw as a kid. You stopped after 3rd grade. Why?" I dropped the phone. That wasn't online. It wasn't in any bio. I hadn't told anyone that in years. I blocked the number. Next morning, another message. Different number. "Your middle name is Elise. You never liked it." I locked my phone. Turned it off. Took a walk around the block, trying to steady my breath. I'd told Trevor my last name during the date, just casually in a story. Maybe he'd look me up. Maybe this was a sick joke. I called him. He answered on the 2nd ring. "Hey," he said. "Everything okay?" "No," I said. "I keep getting messages. Someone knows things they shouldn't." A pause. "What kind of things?" I told him. "My drawings. My middle name." Another pause. "That's intense," he said. "But it's not me. Why would I do that?" "I don't know. But someone is watching. Or listening. Maybe it's someone from your past," he suggested. "An ex? A friend?" "No," I said. "This is different. It feels close." He said he understood. That he'd be upset too. That if I wanted to talk more, he'd be around. I didn't know whether to believe him. I didn't sleep that night. The following afternoon, I went to a cafe downtown to get out of the apartment. I sat near the back, ordered a tea, and tried to read. I glanced up once and froze. Across the room, near the window, sat a woman. She looked like me. Not exactly, but enough to make my stomach turn. Same haircut, same posture, same way of holding a cup with both hands. Sitting across from her, Trevor. He was laughing. Not the small, restrained laugh he'd used with me. This was full. Open. I watched them for a minute. She leaned forward, touched his wrist. My hands shook. I left the cafe. Fast. That night, another message. "You envy the version of yourself that doesn't hesitate." I didn't respond. I called Trevor again. He answered. "I saw you," I said. "At the cafe. With someone." Silence. Then, "You followed me?" I was already there. "She's someone I know. From work. She looks like me." Another silence. "You're upset," he said softly. "What is this?" I asked. "Why are you doing this?" "I'm not." "Then who is?" Another pause. Then he said, "Maybe it's someone who wants to know you better than you know yourself." I hung up. That night, I unplugged everything in my apartment. My laptop. My smart speaker. I covered the cameras on my devices. I took a sleeping pill and went to bed fully clothed. When I woke up, my phone was on, and there was one new photo. Me. Asleep. Taken from the foot of my bed. I screamed. Called the police. They came. Took the phone. Filed a report. Nothing was stolen. No sign of forced entry. They asked if I had any enemies. Any exes. Anyone who might want to scare me. I said no. I didn't mention Trevor. I moved apartments 2 weeks later. No forwarding address. No social media. But the messages didn't stop. They just changed tone. "You're learning. That's good. You're harder to follow now. But I still see you. I liked you better when you didn't look over your shoulder." I stopped replying. Stopped reading them eventually. You'd think after the whole bookstore guy who tried to convert me to a meat-only diet thing, I'd take a break from dating apps. But no. There I was again, swiping through various degrees of facial hair and car selfies when I matched with Natalie. Her profile was fine. Nothing screamed scam or cult. She had a nice smile, mentioned she liked long walks that don't feel like cardio, and worked in marketing. I figured we'd have at least one decent conversation before the inevitable fade. Surprisingly, she messaged first. "You work in UX, right? That's so cool. I'm always curious about how people make apps feel intuitive." I was flattered. I mean, most people see UX and assume I fix printers. We exchanged a few pleasant, mildly flirty messages. She asked thoughtful questions, didn't overuse emojis, and even used semicolons correctly. We made plans for coffee on a Saturday afternoon. She picked the cafe. One of those sleek, Scandinavian-inspired places with cement floors, plant walls, and chairs that look great but punish your spine. She was already there when I arrived, seated at a corner table with 2 drinks. She stood up as I approached, tall, well-dressed, confident. I was quietly relieved. No immediate red flags. "Hi, you must be Erin," she said, smiling. "I got us cappuccinos." "Thanks," I said. "Very efficient." She laughed. "I am nothing if not optimized." We sat. The conversation started off well. She told me she worked in branding strategy, which sounded vague but harmless. I told her a bit about the app one was working on, which tries to help people track their mood patterns. She seemed genuinely interested. Then, somewhere around minute 27, things shifted. "So," she said, "you work at Tevrin Systems?" "Yeah," I said slowly. "How'd you know that?" "I don't think I mentioned it." She smiled. "Oh, it was in your LinkedIn. I did a little background check. Hope that's not creepy." I laughed cautiously. "I mean, it's only creepy if you found my high school GPA." She leaned in slightly. "I actually know someone who's been dying to get into your company." There it was. I paused. "Oh, yeah, my cousin. She just graduated with a degree in behavioral psych. Super smart, really driven. I actually told her I'd ask around." I blinked. "Ask around like at my job?" "Exactly," she said brightly. I figured, hey, you're in the door already. Maybe you could pass along her resume. I sipped my cappuccino, which suddenly tasted like obligation. "To be honest," I said, "I don't really handle hiring." "Oh, totally," she said. "But even just forwarding it to someone would be amazing. You'd be helping her so much. She's been having a really rough time finding opportunities." I nodded slowly. "Okay. I mean, I can look at it." "Perfect," she said, pulling out her phone. "I'll email it to you right now." She tapped quickly, then looked up. "What's your work email?" I gave her my personal one. She hesitated, then typed it in anyway. We continued chatting, but something had shifted. She stopped asking about me. The warmth dimmed. It was like she'd completed the real objective and was now just waiting for the check. After 40 more minutes of lukewarm banter, mostly her describing her cousin's unpaid internships, we wrapped things up. She stood, gave me a light hug, and said, "This was so great. I'll tell Ava to expect good news." I stood there for a second after she left, still holding the cup, wondering if I'd just been on a date or a referral call. Later that night, I got a LinkedIn request. From Ava S. Mutual connection, Natalie R. The message read, "Hi Erin. Natalie mentioned you might be able to help me get a foot in the door at Tevrin. Would love to connect." I didn't reply. The next day, Natalie messaged again. "Hey, just checking in. Was Ava able to reach you? She's so excited." Smiley face. I didn't write back right away. I reread our messages. I tried to see if I'd missed something obvious. A hint. A warning. Nope. She'd played it well. Just enough personal sparkle to make me feel like it was a real date. But now that I look back, every question had been professional. "No, what's your favorite movie?" "No, tell me something weird about you." Just details she could pass on. I waited a day, then replied, "Hey, I'm not comfortable being used as a networking connection under false pretenses." I thought this was a date. No response. 2 days later, her profile vanished. Not unmatched. Gone. Like she'd never existed. A week after that, a new message popped up on LinkedIn. From a different profile. Different name. Same face. Different cousin. I should have known by the third text. The first was fine. "Hey, looking forward to Saturday." The second was okay. "I'm sorry if I'm slow replying. My ex has been texting nonstop today, face with rolling eyes." And the third? "Do you think it's weird to still be friends with someone who broke your heart and cheated on you?" That was 3 days before we met in person. I could have bowed out then. Should have. But I told myself not to judge prematurely. People vent. Maybe she just needed to get it out of her system before starting something new. Her name was Aressa. Unusual name. Pretty though. She had a sharp laugh, a bit of an edge in her profile bio. "Not here to babysit your ego. I drink mezcal and talk fast." Fine by me. We met at a quiet bar on the east side, one of those dim places with velvet booths and bartenders who make drinks with sprigs of rosemary and smirks. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at the far end of the bar, swirling something clear in a tumbler. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. She stood, hugged me, and said, "You're taller than I expected." "I like that." I smiled. So far, so good. We ordered drinks. She got a mezcal cocktail, of course. I stuck with bourbon. I asked how her day was. She sighed. Not a normal sigh. One of those full body, where do I begin sighs. And that's when it started. Honestly, she said, it's been rough. My ex showed up at my apartment this morning. Just showed up. No warning. Banging on my door like some kind of, I don't even know. Like he owns the air around me. I blinked. Wow, that's a lot. Right? She said, launching in. He cheated on me with someone who wore glitter eyeliner and posted quotes from The Alchemist. I mean, who does that? I tried to nod sympathetically. That sounds really. And the worst part, she interrupted. He still doesn't think he did anything wrong. He says I was emotionally unavailable because I didn't want to go to his cousin's baby shower. Like, sorry, I have boundaries? I took a sip of my drink. Sounds like he didn't respect you. She lit up. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Finally, someone who gets it. I smiled, but something in my chest tightened. She kept going. Anecdotes. Arguments. Screenshots. Yes, she actually pulled out her phone and showed me a text thread labeled fire mistake. I glanced around the bar, wondering if the bartender could sense the emotional weight radiating off our booth. At one point, I tried to pivot. I asked what she did for work. Oh, I'm in PR, she said, waving her hand. But honestly, everything feels like a distraction right now. I'm trying to focus on healing. I nodded. That's important. She leaned in. Do you think people can really change? I hesitated. Sometimes. Depends on why they want to. She stared at me for a moment. You're good at this. You feel solid. Like grounded. I smiled awkwardly. Thanks. She sighed again. I shouldn't be dating. I know that. But I hate being alone. There it was. I don't remember what I said to that. Something vague. Supportive. Non-committal. The evening dragged on. Every time I tried to redirect, to movies, music, family, she looped back. Her ex. Her therapist. The time she found glitter in her sheets and knew he'd been with that girl. She ordered another drink. I switched to soda water. Eventually, I said, I should probably get going soon. She looked surprised. Already? It's getting late, I said gently. She tilted her head. You're sweet. You remind me of my ex before he got cynical. I offered a tight smile. That's good. She laughed. Who knows? Maybe I'm projecting. She didn't ask if I wanted to see her again. I didn't offer. We split the check. She thanked me for listening. Said it felt good to talk to someone real. I nodded and wished her luck. She hugged me again before we left, longer this time. I walked to my car with a strange mix of emotions, sadness, irritation, a little guilt. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't manipulative. She was just not ready. Not even close. I got home and checked my phone. One new message from her. I know I talked too much, but I wasn't pretending. Thank you for holding space. I didn't reply. There wasn't anything wrong with her, but there wasn't room for me in the evening. Not really. I'd just been a warm body in a booth. A stand-in for closure. And maybe that's fine for some people. But I want something mutual. Not a monologue. Not a therapy session. Something that starts with two people, not just the aftermath of one. I used to think rudeness was loud. Interruptions. Talking over someone. Showing up late and never saying sorry. But then I met Bianca. She wasn't loud. She was elsewhere. We matched on a Tuesday. Her profile was short. 2 photos, a dog, and a quote from a TV show I liked. She worked in advertising, mentioned she hated cilantro, and had a playlist of songs that feel like dusk. I thought that was oddly specific and probably meant she had a sense of mood. She messaged first. Is that a real dog or a rental? Referring to the dog in my profile. I replied that he was mine and very judgmental. She sent a laughing emoji and said she liked judgmental dogs better than judgmental people. We made plans for drinks on Saturday. She picked the place, somewhere downtown with dark lighting and music just loud enough to make you lean in. I got there first. She arrived 5 minutes late. No big deal. She wore a dark red jacket and ankle boots. Her hair was pinned up loosely, like she'd been in a rush but still cared. Hey, she said, then glanced at her phone. Sorry, my friend was sending me something ridiculous. I smiled. No worries. We went inside. Found a small table in the corner. She sat down, looked at her phone again, and said, This place is cute. One SEC. I just have to reply to this. I nodded. It started small. She kept her phone face up on the table. Every few minutes, it buzzed. She'd glance down, swipe quickly, then look up and smile like she hadn't missed anything. I asked where she worked. She said something about campaign metrics and brand voice realignment, then paused mid-sentence to type out a response. When she looked up again, she said, "Sorry. My roommate's dating someone new, and it's a whole thing." I laughed politely. "Sounds complicated." "Oh, beyond," she said. "Anyway, what were we talking about?" I wasn't sure we were. Still, I tried. I asked about her dog. She showed me a photo, then 3 more. Then she got a message and giggled. "Sorry," she said. "Inside joke. I'll tell you later." She didn't. She asked what I did for work, and I told her I was in content strategy. "Like SEO and stuff?" she asked. "Kind of," I said. "But more like structuring information so people can find what they need without clicking 5 times." She nodded, eyes scanning her screen. "Sorry, wait. What did you say?" I repeated myself. She nodded again. "Cool. That's cool." We ordered drinks. She posted a photo of hers to her Instagram story. Added a GIF. Then typed something and laughed again. I said, "What's funny?" "Oh," she said. "Nothing important. Just a group chat." She didn't ask what I was drinking. I asked if she liked the bar. She said she'd been there once before, but barely remembered it. I think I was with someone who talked too much. She laughed at that. I didn't. Halfway through the date, she said, "I'm being rude, aren't I?" I shrugged. "A little." She smiled. "I know. I'm just tapped in all the time. Bad habit." And then she didn't put her phone away. She just said it, acknowledged it, and kept going. I started counting quietly. In the span of 30 minutes, she checked her phone 9 times. Laughed out loud 3. Sent at least 5 messages. She asked me one more question, what kind of music I liked, then interrupted my answer to record a video of the bar's ceiling lights for her story. I stopped talking mid-sentence. She didn't notice. Eventually, she glanced at the time and said, "I should probably head out soon. My friend's having a thing." I nodded. "Cool." She stood, hugged me briefly, and said, "This was fun. Let's chat again." I smiled. "Sure." She walked out texting. I sat for another 5 minutes, finishing my drink. When I got home, there was a message from her. "Hey, you're really interesting. Hope I wasn't too distracted. Let's hang again." I didn't reply. A few days later, a friend of mine messaged me. "Did you go out with Bianca? She's dating 2 of my friends right now. They're both confused." I wasn't surprised. I wasn't angry either. Just deflated. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't malicious. She was just never fully there. Too many conversations. Too many threads. Too many versions of herself to keep active all at once. I think if I'd asked her about it, she would have said she was just bad at being present. As if it were a personality quirk, not a choice. But presence isn't ambient. You have to show up. And she didn't. At least, not with me.